Welcome back to In Pursuit of Magic, where we explore the things that inspire us, connect us, and the magic we find along the way. I'm Matthew Medina, and today's very special guest is a very talented actress whose career spans theater, film, and television. She first made her mark on stage, including her Broadway debut in 6 Degrees of Separation and a memorable turn as Janis Joplin in the off Broadway production Love Janis. On screen, she's best known for her role as correctional officer Wanda Bell on Orange is the New Black and as Claudia Henderson, Dustin's devoted mom on Stranger Things. She's also appeared in Insecure, Homeland, and films ranging from The Wolf of Wall Street to the recent Saturday Night. Please welcome Catherine Curtin. Kathy, thank you so much for being on.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me. I mean, hi, 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 hi. I'm glad to be here. So cool.
It's so great looking at your career and the different things you've been part of because you've gotten to like dive into different parts of entertainment and kind of flex different types of muscles. And so it makes me very curious to start with what inspired you to be an actress?
Oh, well, that's easy. Well, I mean, it's really not easy. It's sort of slightly tragic. It was very tragic. My dad was, when I was 17, my dad died of a terminal illness. And I watched them, like, I don't even know you, and we're getting very private publicly here, but I watched them pull the plug, because he was comatose. And when I, when that happened and that whole event, losing the person that was so important to me in my life, really still is so important to me in my life. I just couldn't see doing anything in life that I didn't feel like doing. It just said to me that life is, uh, you should go for it because you don't know how long you're going to be here. Because he was very young, he was 52, and he was in great health. He was like the kind of guy who walked 5 miles a day, and same old story. And so I just think it's, for me, my mom had sort of put me in this all professional children's theater company when I was in high school so that I wasn't in the hospital all the time. And so I had this taste of it, and I was terrible. I was really untalented. I'm not sure the verdict is out on that one yet, but I was so bad and they just felt sorry for me. So they would have me do the puppets on the side. And I didn't know how to do puppets. So I would just be like, "Oh, these are the puppets. Now I'm going to change puppets now for no reason, like for no reason." And it was shows like Liz Swado's and, like Alice in Wonderlandy kind of stuff. And really talented kids, like Ben Stiller was in that company, Amy Stiller, very talented people. And then and I'm doing puppets on the puppets. So, they became my family, I think, when my own personal family was in this tragic place of just really falling apart. And so I just stuck with that because it became, I think, in a lot of ways, more a philosophical, emotional, familial, psychological feeling connection. And then I became very political, and I am very political. And I did a lot. This was, theater in New York, and I did a lot of political plays downtown and, Time Out magazine, which was at that time a really big rag. They called me, I think, the downtown secret weapon because I was always playing these very strange roles of like, serpents slithering on the floor, reciting, I don't know what I was reciting, probably the Constitution or something, not really. But, it was a very, like, I was very, art for me was a form of activism. And it was less about art and more about what are we saying and what are we doing and how are we changing the world and can we change the world and what does it mean to change the world and can we be on the side of good. And at that time, growing up in New York was very kind of like, Mambo Mimes and Richard Foreman and La Mama and all of these amazing creators, Mac Wellman, Les Waters, all these amazing creators that were very intellectual. It was a very, very intellectual transport and it was it was about achieving something bigger than all of us. And I think for me, that just made a lot of sense. Like, I want to achieve stuff that's, I want to be part of the solution. And New York is this kind of liberal, ultra liberal, do what you do, live what you live, don't hurt anyone along the way, try to. And I think that is the city, as much as anything, taught me that I had to get out there and, be a voice, whatever that voice was. And, I knew I loved it. My father loved the theater, and I think my mother did too, but my father definitely did. And as soon as I could sit still when I was like 4 years old, every Friday night I was in the theater. We saw everything. My father thought he was Yul Brynner, in The King and I think I saw that show. I don't know how many times I saw that show. But and then, we saw everything at the Met, we saw everything. We were very lucky and we weren't wealthy, but it was my family always prioritized events. Like you have to go see things, you have to go do things, you have to be a part of the conversation. And so that was I think really, it just made sense to me. It just was like, "Oh, well, this is what I'm supposed to do. This is where I go." And I've always sort of been a little bit of a person of like, well, the universe is telling me to go here, so I'm gonna go because I have to listen to the universe because I don't know what else or who else or why else I'm supposed to listen to any other thing. But the universe is talking, so I'm going. And I think I've held that stubborn sway ever since. And I'm this, wacky New York artist who does way too many independent films. So, for my own good. But
Well, I think it's just amazing picking apart everything you shared because it goes to show that you are meant to be where you are. I mean, I think growing up in that environment, being exposed to it, immersing yourself in it, and then going through such a tragedy, but finding a home and community within a space like that, I think is such a beautiful thing. And it goes to show how you can find people to lean on and community within that space. You shared something, and I'm thinking how I was very close with my grandfather growing up, and he ended up passing away and from cancer, and it was hospice at home. So in a similar moment,
right, right.
we were there on
Similar,
his last moments.
very similar.
And for the same reasons, I stagnated creatively. I didn't know if I wanted to do anything or how I would or find that space. And it took a lot of time and personal work and
Yeah.
the oncoming birth of my daughter to finally be like, I need to do something. I need to do this. I need to jump in and stop holding myself back. So it's beautiful to hear your story because not only is it relatable, I think it just goes to show the comfort that you can find in that space. And then also, like you said, the activism that exists, the power that is within art, I think is incredibly powerful. I say it to
Yeah.
people a lot how storytelling can create empathy in people who didn't have it before. And that's not to be overlooked.
Yeah. Yeah. Empathy. That's a big word. Empathy, sympathy. I think it definitely, especially at this time in our lives where we are so computer centric and so device centric. And so, in a way, like, this, I ran into this friend of mine and she said, I haven't left my house in like a week. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe you needed to leave your house. Maybe don't order your groceries and have them delivered. Why don't you wander over and like, squeeze some fruit, you know, like find, find somebody in the grocery store that's buying the same kombucha as you are and strike up a conversation. Like I think that especially at this time in our lives, we are being cut off in almost a really active way from who we are and what we are sensorially. I got a chance to wander over to the beach about a little few days ago. And when I got back, I was like, wow, I feel so different. I feel different. I feel different. I actually feel different. Why do I feel different? And why do I feel more like myself? And why do I feel sort of like calmer, and why do I feel more internally elated and just relaxed and, happy to be here? And I was like, wow, I went to the beach. I saw the ocean. I stood on the sand. I felt the wind. And I think all of these things we are becoming really dangerously divorced from. And we need to reclaim not only our empathy for others, but our empathy for ourselves, our empathy for sunlight, our empathy for, to go out, take a walk, see the stars, smell the grass. It's a very strange and fractured corporate time in which I think the corporate machine, as wonderful as it is, I think it would be happy if we never stopped, buying and selling and being on some device and, you know, to take a walk is free and nobody's earning any money from that except you are because you're earning the greatest gift of all in life to take a walk for free, like what's one of the good ones. And I don't know, I just feel like we need to regain our value system when it comes to what is important and are we important as people? Is humanity important? Are people important? Is the planet important? Is the environment important? Or is this all everything is for sale and this is all just a price tag? And I don't think everything is for sale and I don't think it's all just a price tag. And I think we need to create a little bit of a revolutionary pushback on the fact that, we human beings are sentient beings, we're not robots. And I look forward to all these robots wandering around the neighborhood, and I really love them to make me a cup of tea, but I don't really love want them to do my thinking for me, you know? I don't want them to write my screenplay. I don't want them to, you know, I met this young actor who told me that he was using AI to take apart a script that he was working on as an actor and pose questions to him about the script. And I thought, well, I guess that's interesting. But on another level, like those are the questions that are supposed to come out of your heart. And having it come from AI is, one step away from, really how is chicken soup made? So I was saddened to hear that. And I was like, well, you going to rehearse it with AI, So that was really, that felt really crazy to me. And, I'm not sure. I mean, I'm so grateful, obviously, to be in this modern society that we are living in this contemporary world. But I'm not quite sure that there aren't some things that we need to just look at and throw up as, you know, what direction do we wanna go with as we go along, as we wander along, Like, who is
which is
behind.
really important.
Yeah, yeah, it is.
And I think part of the sadness there too is it was an opportunity for this person writing the script to connect with another human and say, "Hey,
Yes,
give this a read. Like, what are your thoughts? What do you
yes,
feel? What does it make you feel?" And it makes me think of just also I've met some people who would write a script and send it to someone, but they didn't want feedback. They were just like, "Oh, here, like give it a read." And then they were like, "But I'm not really looking for feedback or a critique." It was like, "Well, then why are you sharing? Because you want to
yeah,
make this and put it out into the world for people
yeah,
to react to it, feel something." So isn't
yeah,
that the ultimate test? I would think.
yes, yes, yes. And also, art is a team sport, so that I think the more the more people relate to what you are doing or want to talk about it or are affected by it or have a question about it, I think that's only going to make the art stronger, you know? So it's interesting.
And it works with performing too, I think, especially I hear so many times with live theater how because it's live, every performance feels different. The audience is always different. There's always a different vibe and feedback and response to what's going on. And so I'm curious for you and having such a live theater background, how does that end up preparing you and translating to film and TV for you personally in your career?
That's such a good question. I ask myself that question frequently. I don't really have a huge desire to do theater anymore. I do my friends' plays. My friends are like, "You doing my play?" And I'm like, "Oh, okay, I'm doing your play." And I do a lot of readings and workshops and stuff like that. But theater was a really fascinating journey to have been on, and I'm very grateful for it. And I think theater in New York specifically sort of taught all of us that the important thing was to make stuff. The important stuff is just what are you making and how is it being interpreted and who's interpreting it and you know get more eyes on it. And I worked with a theater ensemble studio theater that I'm a member at, and they are a fabulous company for anybody who is looking to be a young writer or young actor, director, a producer. They do like this young blood company does so many things. They do like every weekend they've got something going on and the writers are serving people brunch and you're watching their plays and you're eating their pancakes and they've got screenplays, they've got plays that they're doing that so many of them are on their show running, like it's really interesting to me the the creative thrust that is coming out of young, theater makers, and I think that was what I was too. And now with film and TV, these are different engines, they're different, they're it's the same sort of acting, the same sort of like, interpretation, the same you have to work really hard at it to make it happen, but the vibrations through which things are channeled, in TV, you're really, really, really trying to talk to like usually one person, and really get across what you want to say. It's an intimate medium. And in film and indie film, it's a little more to me, it feels a little bit more, I think, creatively looser, creatively bigger, creatively. I'm always very excited to shoot film because in TV, you're trying to do 10 pages a day, and that's a lot. And in film, maybe you're doing 10 pages a day, but it's not the same, it's not the same machine. TV is really a machine. When you go into a show, you're walking on a set that, hopefully people have been working on and it's successful and wonderful and there's a lot going on, but it's like it's like going into an aerobics class and you've never taken aerobics. You know what I mean? It's like you're entering into a thing that is high energy, moving fast, moving forward, a lot going on, long days, hard work. And for me in film, because I do also a lot of indie film, it just feels like, every moment, there what people are doing in TV, film is trying to do in a much more sort of like, in a way, luxurious, expanded version. Because even though if like an indie film, it's 18 to 24 days, 14 to 24 days, something in there that you're shooting a full 90 pages, 90 to 120 pages, that's still a more relaxed schedule in a way than TV. And you're still you're still you're still vibrating in indie film, and I think in film in a way there's you're going to get to know that creative. You're going to get to know most of the creatives. You're going to sit around with those actors in locations that are like, "Oh my gosh, where are we?" And in TV, it's a much more usually, maybe you'll be on a set or you'll be on a studio or it's a much more there's you got your dressing room, but this this was this scene, let's say, is slotted for, you know, it's going to be shot from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. And then we got to move on. And in film, I was on a film recently and we were shooting 3 scenes in one room, in one location. And the scenes really were linked story-wise, so we just shot them as a thing. We didn't shoot them as, this is scene 1, this is scene 2, this is scene 3. We shot all 3 scenes in continuum, and so we took, I think, longer than any one scene would take, but shorter than all 3 scenes would have taken. We had extra time there, because we shot them all together, and it was exciting to shoot that way, and when you're on TV, you're probably gonna just do what everybody's doing, but in indie film, you can be like, "You know what? We're here. Everybody knows this stuff. Let's just shoot all 3 together." And the camera people are usually really up for that because it's interesting to them, and you're gonna do more shots because you're not shooting as much, but you're shooting more intensely in a way. And then because we finished that early, we were about an hour ahead of schedule. When we went to shoot the next scenes, we got that hour tacked on to that, which really needed it because there was a lot of background people and there was a lot of moving pieces and the camera had to catch, long shots to medium shots. And so it was this sort of lucky accident. And I think that that flexibility exists a bit more in indie film, especially than it would in TV, in which, when you're on a TV show, there's like 200 people and all 200 people are going to move at one time. So nobody's going to rewrite the schedule, like, let's just do it, and in indie film, you will. You're like, "Oh my gosh, the it's we didn't know it was gonna be this windy. Let's write that in." Like, we didn't know that that, this set was gonna have this magical door in the back that was gonna cast this light that nobody can believe how incredible it is. Well, let's just have that. Let's just have that be part of it now, and that excitement, it's indie film, it's definitely creating through adversity, but adversity when you're creating can sometimes be a good friend and also really ennoble people to rethink, think on your feet. And I think that in film, even in some of the bigger films that I have been on, that I've been lucky enough to be on, there can be there's a little bit more, well, we thought we were gonna shoot it there, but now we're thinking we're gonna shoot it here. This is better. And it's like, yeah, that's better. Let's shoot it there. And in TV, sometimes maybe, it's like, this is where we're shooting. This is how the camera is tracking. This is where we're going. And that's exciting too. And that's really fun. It's really exciting to work within a choreographed moment, but that moment was choreographed a week ago, and that moment is gonna be that choreography of how and what and when and how it's going down, And I think TV is very expensive to shoot. So, there is a lot of that's stressful and that creates tension. So you wanna really just, make it happen and get your day. And so I would in some ways, I really feel like indie film is a lot more like off Broadway and off Broadway, which I tend to always love. And in a lot of respects, I think TV is probably more like Broadway. It's more of a set thing and here we go and this is what we're doing you know? And I definitely am slightly scrappier. So I'm definitely like, yeah, let's shoot all 3 things at one time. Yeah, that sounds exciting. Or I was on a set years ago and there were 5 actresses on it, very well-known actresses. Like I was like, "Oh, I love these women." And all 5 of us were like, "Wow, this would be a great B-roll shot. Somebody should get this. Somebody should get this shot." And the camera, nobody was getting anything at that moment. Nothing was terribly happening, and we were early, and we went up to, the first AD and we were like, "You guys, we should get this shot. The camera's right there. You could just take it." And the first AD was like, "Well, we're not boarded for it." And I'm like, "But this is indie film and it's an incredible shot. And the shot that you're getting or that you've gotten, I don't know, is that all you want in your wheelhouse?" And I think the idea with indie film that you can be a little flexible and create on the fly is always nice because you just want to get a lot of footage, you know? That's what I think about, you know.
What's beautiful about that too, though, is that it circles back to this collaboration in a creative space, which I think is really important, and people taking notice and coming up with ideas of how to make things better, so the final product is better. And
Yes,
that doesn't
yes.
always allow that. And even if the space could allow that, not every production is the same or run the same. I know I've heard great stories, I've heard horror stories, and I think within chasing any dream, also, there's going to be highs and lows and different types of experiences, and a lot of yeses, a lot of nos. And so, for you, in the harder moments when there is a no or a closed door or something doesn't work out the way you thought it would, how do you manage to push through those moments so your fire doesn't go out?
My fire goes out. My fire goes out. I have 2 fabulous dogs who I definitely lean on a lot. My husband is lovely and really cooks me dinner and puts a blanket on my toes and figures out what to watch on Netflix or Apple or whatever. And, my son is very creative and he's always got the coolest stuff to turn me on to on YouTube. And I guess it's family as probably and friends and also New York. New York is a real turn on. It's hard to live in New York City and not be like, "Oh, whoa, what's happening over there?" You know? So it ignites a fire. But I definitely get, very, very downtrodden by this business. I think the economics of it are just ridiculous. One month you might be doing really well, and the next month you're like, wow, what happened to that other month? And it's very, very hard in that sense. And I don't I say this honestly because I very much want people to know that unless you have to do this, you shouldn't do it. It's not, it's not an easy life. And I think even for the multi-dimensional millionaire, billionaire stars, top 1%, I think it's not easy. I think it's not easy to, be somebody that's so recognized that you can't walk down the street and just in your own mind and your own thoughts, or that, you can't get a phone call that, you know, somebody you love has passed on and somebody comes up to you and goes, "Can I have a picture with you right now?" And you're like, "Well, I just got this call that someone I love has passed on, so I'm actually crying, so maybe I don't want to do a picture right now." And I think I've seen that happen with really well-known people. And I mean, I saw the jacket basically torn off a girl as she was going into an event. And I think that, you know, that's not so easy to just be like an everyday person, having, want to take a walk. And I think that is one of the nice things about New York because there's a lot of very really famous people here, and they tend to be left alone. Or somebody will be like, "Did we get a croissant together this morning? Mine was stale." Like there tends to be like, "I don't really know who you are, but you do look familiar." And so, but I think this profession to be an artist in a capitalist society, a corptocracy, is not so easy. And, there's all these stories of like, I never would have written that Broadway musical unless, my friends had let me live rent free on their third floor and fed me for 3 years. The to create art, to create work, it's very difficult to sort of like look at the stock market, you know? You have to be you're trying to look into the ether of whatever character's heart that you're playing. You're not trying to be in this material world. You're in a much more esoteric world, a much more unseen world, bringing the unseen to be seen. And so the discipline and the amount of work that it takes is quite extant and probably never matches a paycheck unless, you know, you're getting up there with George Clooney or somebody. But I think people do need to know that it's hard to be an artist in this society. And I am an artist because I can't do anything else. Like, I literally can't get my mind to focus on anything but art. You know, like yes, I read the paper. Yes, I'm aware of what's going on politically. Yes, I'm horrified by, you know, the dissolution of our current democracy, it seems, and the robbing of the bank that is happening. The bank being the US. I think we are being robbed. I think that's pretty clear. I don't think anybody's really arguing with that. I mean, the Wall Street Journal, which is not the most, you know, it's kind of a conservative rag, has pointed that out. You know, the corruption is pretty intense. But I just I see that, and I still need to return to my art. I still need to return to my scripts. I still need to return to what it is that I'm doing with other artists. I wake up, I think about art. I go to sleep, I think about art. All day long, you know, I'm trying to figure it out. My whole life is basically driven by the script that I'm in at the moment, and today I'm in 3 scripts. My head is in 3 scripts today, which is a little crazy, but I'm grateful. But I just feel like one should not do this if you can do anything else or take joy or heart or soul or passion in another mission. The mission of the artist, you're here because you don't have a choice. And don't take that lightly. Like, if I could choose to be like something else with a normal whatever, I would do it in a heartbeat. I would love a normal life, but I'm not normal. I am not normal. I wake up, I'm like, why did this character do this? Why is she like this? What is going on for her? Like why doesn't she ask me these questions? Like, you know, why am I in question when I look at this monologue? What am I thinking about this monologue? Why am I confused with this question in this scene? Why does this scene confuse me? Why does this scene creating a sense of impatience in me? Why did this writer put this scene next to that scene? Why is this line like that? What am I missing by not understanding that? You know, I literally can't I just can't get enough, you know? Like, I just got a job today, which is so lovely, playing this mom who and I definitely play more than moms, and my son would definitely tell you that. But you know, playing this mom who, you know, she's at the beginning of the film and the end of the film, and this whole her son, who's not too far off in age from my son, which is interesting, goes through this whole Ulyssean journey in the middle, and he starts with me and he ends with me in this film. And I'm so proud to to be a conduit for this young man in this film to know his mom before this great journey he's on and after this he comes back from this great journey. Like, I think that's such a beautiful thing that it is the mother that is at either end of the journey. And, you know, so I'm really floored by that, and I think it's very special. So, I don't know, I can't help myself. It's not like, if I could be a lawyer or a doctor or a stockbroker or a dentist or a cashier or a dog walker or a construction worker or, a police person or a cab driver. I would be any of these things. I would be anything else. I am not here by choice. I'm here because this is the way I function in the world. This is just who I am. So I do get blue that, sometimes this life is as hard as it is, but I also don't have a choice. It's just, it's the mechanism of which I breathe. It just is my mechanism. It's not a choice.
It's completely who you are, and I think that's why you understand the power of art and storytelling. You understand the power of characters and how they can affect you and how they can make you think and see the world and vice versa. I think everything kind of coincides and affects each other. And I think when it's part of who you are, it is all you think about. It is all you immerse yourself in and try to put yourself in those shoes and explore and ask questions because at the end of the day, these stories, whether they're in outer space or deal with supernatural or something more grounded, they all come back to human stories, just in different forms. And I think, like you said, there's good times, there's bad, there's feast and famine. It seems to be a very common thing within entertainment. And I'm thinking of one of the biggest things you've been part of, which is Stranger Things. And I'm so curious, being put in the middle of one of the biggest pop culture phenomenons in the last decade, what was it like seeing that show's popularity grow, and how do you feel about the character that you played and her place in the story?
Well, I have to say, first of all, that I think that the Duffer Brothers are two of the nicest guys on planet Earth. The I didn't really watch the show before I went to shoot it the first time. My son had watched it, friends had watched it, but they were like, "Oh, this show." I was like, "Okay, well, I'm really grateful to have a job and seems like a really fun TV show, so I'm there." And I went to set and I was standing in the middle of the set. I will never forget this. And these 2 young, very nice looking people come up to me and they're like, "Hi." And I'm like, "Well, hi. Hi." And they're like, "Well, we're the Duffer Brothers." And I'm like, "Okay, well, I'm Kathy." And then they said, "Don't worry about the lines. Just worry about the spirit of moving through the scene." And I mean, that was sort of a paraphrase there, but and then if we like something, we'll return to it or we'll just keep moving through it in other ways and that it's a chip. So don't worry about it. That like it's not, we weren't shooting on film, we were shooting on chip. So I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." And then we got all the lines because when there's no pressure on getting lines, you get all the lines. That is just the key to that. But we got all the lines. We did everything we were gonna do. And we like a lot more stuff came in. It was so fun. We had such a good time. And so for me, it was never really a phenomenon. It was just a job that I truly enjoyed going to and where the people were incredibly kind and gentle and generous. And there was always lots of kiwi and to eat and, yummy snacks. And we were incredibly well taken care of and incredibly cared about. And you felt seen on that set, like, no matter who you are, no matter what you were doing that day, you just really felt seen. And when I think artists feel seen, I think they really, like, lean forward into whatever they can bring to the team that day. And just to me, it's not really a phenomenon. It's just an incredibly nice group of people who were very creative and very in tune with other creators and really aware of how to let freedom reign in front of the camera and how to support that and how aware they are of the being that is the artists in front of them on camera. Very respectful for the being of the artist and the becoming of the scene and the finding of the scene. So I guess that, really isn't an answer to your question, but I never saw it as a spectacle. I just saw it and continue to see it as one of the nicest times I've ever had shooting, and I really like to have a nice day. So, that was good for me. Yeah.
Well, it's amazing to hear too, and I feel like that's a testament to why it left such an impact on pop culture. Creatives can come together and create that kind of environment. It makes a better product at the end of the day. And I know that's not always common. That doesn't happen a lot.
I agree, 100%. I am in your schoolhouse. Yes, in your I agree, I agree. I think kindness on set is a huge factor in how things are gonna move forward, and I think that other actors being generous and giving, like, every actor on that set was generous and giving to me, every single one. Kind, generous, giving, never no ego. And when the ego comes in and when narcissism comes in and when authoritarianism comes in, I think you get what you get, but who knows what you could have gotten had the other magical human elements been present, like love and kindness and sharing and caring and I'm gonna work with you. I'm not gonna tell you what to do. I'm gonna see what you have to offer. And that's seeing what you brought people in, like, I think there's this famous quote from Sam Jackson. He was doing a film, as I guess an indie film, and before he even started, they were telling him what to do and how to do it and ba ba ba. And he's like, "Well, did you want Sam Jackson? Because I'm here for a reason. I'm here because, like, I can do stuff, and you should let me do stuff before you have an opinion on what I'm doing. And maybe my pinky doesn't want to go to the left. Maybe my instinct says my pinky goes to the right or whatever. And because I'm Sam Jackson and clearly I can do stuff, you should see what it is that I'm going to do. You should see what I can bring to you. And I just love that when I heard that story, and I think seeing the greatness in people before you helps to create and open up and give license to the greatness that can happen in the moment. And for me, the Duffer Brothers were always people who opened up to whatever was in front of them and wanted to know what was in front of them. Their curiosity as fellow artists and their protectiveness as fellow artists was so heartbreaking to me. So beautiful.
That's really amazing to hear because I feel like that's what everyone hopes for when they enjoy a show or a movie or even musical theater itself. I feel like when there's a fandom behind it, you always want to hope that everything behind the scenes has a similar feeling, that the people working on it also feel that way in their experience with it. And that doesn't happen all the time. And
Yes, yes.
has me curious then about how you get to see things from different perspectives because you've also taken on some producing credits. And so what prompted the shift and how has that experience been?
Producing credits for me, you know, I I'm not a producer. I am in awe of producers. I completely respect producers. And I have more taken on producing credits to sort of help get things seen or get things heard about or get things to other actors or to other artists or to other DPs or, to possible funding sources than I have ever actually done any real on the ground producing, which is so difficult. And wow. But anything, I'm always grateful and honored to do to be a part of the producing team in that sense of if I can help, I would like to help. I would always wanna help, you know, art get made.
Which I think is really needed. I think especially with indie films, I'm thinking documentaries. I see these kind of producing teams grow after initial like viewings, and it's because people see it and they believe in it, and they wanna come aboard, which I think is such an important thing to do.
And what you just said, protect the producing team, because it's not only the artists that create the team. The producing team is a very special team. And I think on very successful stuff, it's seems to me quite common that the team stays together. Not always, somebody has to go off and do something or whatever, but I think the specialness of the team is from the top all the way down. And that was something that I learned on Orange. Orange is the New Black. I think the one word I would say about that show was loyalty. That is the one word I would say about those people, from, the caterer to the people in, driving to set, from to the people makeup and hair to there was a sense of we're making this together. We're moving through this together. We brought you on for a reason. And I really got that from them. And there was an enormous respect for the team. Lisa Vinecourt, the headed up producing, everybody on that, everybody producing on that show, obviously writing, creating, Genji, creating brilliant geniuses. But all of the producing team, was a part of, like, how's this going? How is it going? Is it going good? Yeah, it's going good. Okay. Well, that's the decision, and we're moving. Yeah. Okay. And I love that. Trust is one of the most important things that you can have. It's the currency of art. I believe trust is the currency of art. And so when you have a team that trusts each other and that's working together, I think hell or high water, you keep that team. And that maybe that works, in capitalist societies, executives come and go, the hirings, the firings, you know, Doge. Not sure what that was about. That was not very, very successful, not very smart. But people, human power is super valuable and must not be underestimated.
And I think it's incredible insight that you have because of your experience with so many different types of productions, where you get to understand the value of certain things that work really well and then see the issues with things that don't work as well. And it probably also influences and affects how you see things that you join now and that you're working on in the future, which then brings me to my question of what are you excited that you're working on now or have coming out in future?
Well, the
That
the job that I just got today, I'm really actually very excited about, because I have a 20-year-old son, and so any chance I have to sort of, like, interpret or look at the lens in that way is to me is just a gift, it's just a blessing. And I have his film at Woodstock. I'm not sure I'm supposed to announce that yet, so I can't announce it because I don't know. They don't and nobody told me I could announce it. So I better not. But I shot leads and supporting roles in 7 indie films since last July. So I'm assuming they'll all rear their heads. And I loved them all. I thought they were all really interesting projects, really wonderful, playing crazy alcoholics, playing horrible wives, playing lawyers, playing shrinks, playing, you know, friends, all sorts of things. And just really grateful to have played all those, investigated all of those human journeys. So, that's sort of, I don't know where I am right now. And, last week I did 4 self-tapes, and this week I have 5 self-tapes. So, I don't know, either I'm doing something really wrong or I'm doing something vaguely right. So, we'll see where the dice take me. We'll roll the dice, and I'll do the jobs I'm hired to do. I luckily I get a lot of offers, so that, thank God. And then, I send out my auditions, and hopefully they're not pathetic. I mean, I'm always like, "I don't know, you guys. I'm here alone in my apartment taping. I don't know, you know, you want it angry, you want it sad, you want it happy, you want it, like, confused, you want it intense, less intense, too intense, more intense, I don't know, it's me and the dogs, and thankfully, my husband and son come wandering through and read lines for me occasionally, you know, it's like, whatever.
Well, it's funny from what I've heard, those are usually the tapes that you do and you're like, "I don't know about that, but here we go," that end up working out and something comes back and you're like, "Okay then." It's never the ones that you think, "Oh, that was great. That's definitely gonna get somewhere." And
Yeah,
so
well,
I think it's part of the beauty and the magic of this field and also a testament to just the self-doubt, the imposter syndrome that comes along
oh
sometimes,
my
and also
god.
just knowing yourself, believing in yourself. I think that's part of the magic that you have to discover on your own, and it's never gonna stay there. It's always gonna fluctuate where you have other
Yeah.
days and then you go back to it. But for you, I'm wondering, which is my last two questions, where do you find magic in the world, whether it's within the industry or without it? And how do you hope to create magic for others?
I find magic in the moments. I find magic in the moments, like this job that I just got today. I was talking to the filmmaker, it was really lovely. I actually really, really, really wish that every job I did that ever do, that I could speak to the director, filmmaker, and I got a chance to do that on Tuesday, and we talked through a lot of the moments, and there was this one moment where this character puts her hand out and the other character withdraws his, and that's why I took the role, and that's what turns me on, you know, and when I walk down the street, like, that's the moment that's gonna be heavy in my heart, you know, can I fulfill that moment? And I guess that's where I get inspiration from, you know, that is truly where I get my sense of I have to move forward because, you know, I sent out this I retaped for this thing the other day, this comedy, and my retape was not funny at all. It was not fun. There's nothing I found nothing entertaining about that retape. And afterwards, I was wandering around, you know, Monday morning quarterback, and I thought, it's a real question. Why didn't you ask the question? Use the question marks. The question marks are saying, live in the question. And I think that that revelation really brought me through the fact that I probably sent out tape that I'm not going to book, but the fact that I learned something about, like, live in the question, that electricity of that knowledge turns me on. I get very turned on by it. And so, you know, and then I had to write that down, you know, live in the question. What is the cost of this character's situation to this character's heart? What is the cost? What is the cost? And so I think that's what turns me on. You know, what turns me on is these things that these people write. And I'm like, I'm stunned by how wonderful the writing is and how wonderful the content is. And, you know, when the, you know, big orange scary monster says things like, we're living in the Gilded Age and this is like the most exciting time in our lives, I think, I don't think so, dude. I don't think so. But in terms of content, in terms of creative voices, in terms of the fact that maybe the hardship that so many of us are facing right now, you know, takes to $80 to fill up your tank of gas now. That which used to take, you know, 50, like maybe that is going to let people understand that they have to search in other ways and that what is coming at them from the outside, maybe it's not the answer. Maybe the answer is in creating. And I feel like there's so much, there's more shows, there's more movies, there's more amazing documentaries, there's more YouTube stuff right now going on than anybody could possibly consume. And it is so incredible and so wonderful that I think maybe that's really maybe it's the creators' revolution. Maybe creators are not being, seen or heard or remunerated, or, they're fighting for their voice, but maybe that's the revolution that's happening right now. And this political stuff that is so going dreadfully wrong, the strait that was open and now it's just open and closed and open and closed, and it's $1 billion a day. And the sailors and soldiers are on not getting proper meals. And, the American people are suffering, and we're paying $1 billion a day to have our ships sit there in the strait, for a war that didn't need to happen, for 165 school children and teachers that were killed in Iran, that all of the other violent, cruel things that are happening. Maybe this is going to spurn the creators to keep creating, just keep creating and make things. And all of these things that we are seeing and being made, maybe that's our gilded age. Maybe that's where we are having the time of our lives. It was the best of times and the worst of times. And maybe the best of times is in the creative functionality of how many people are stepping up to the plate, not only in political office, and thank God for them, but also in the creative fields. And I think we are speaking to each other, and we need to hold fast and move forward and understand that no AI can ever, 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 ever replace the human heart and the human mind and the human soul. And I'm really glad to be able to go to Google and, look up the stats on the ball game. Great, you know? So thank you, Google. Very grateful. I
Well,
really
I completely
I
agree
looked up
with
a
you.
chicken soup recipe today and I made it and it's very good. So that's amazing. I come from a dinosaur age when, you didn't have these things. If you didn't have a cookbook that had a chicken soup recipe in the house, you were gonna not be able to do that. So I'm very grateful for all this technology. But technology serves humanity, not the other way around. And it is through the creators that we will find this. And if anybody's worried that their job is going to be taken, then start creating and make something, beat them at their own game. They like, okay, so data entry is not so going to be such a great job anymore. Well, who wanted to do that anyway? Create the thing that's gonna need the data entry. Create,
Completely.
create, create.
And, I think you're very successful in being someone who creates magic and being a creator who's also a warrior, a creative warrior. And so I want to thank you for sharing your magic and putting it out in the world because it makes an impact and it's bringing us more art and you're being part of so many projects and clearly bringing something to the table that we need, and we need those human stories, and we need people who care about the art and the passion and what it means to be human and fighting back in that way. So thank you for sharing your magic and coming
Thank
on.
you. Thank you,
And
and thank
I
you for calling me a creative warrior. I'm gonna
You
take that
are.
with me tonight, and I'm grateful for that. Thank you. And I hope to
Well
meet all the other creative warriors on this planet, and we can have, creative warrior, hold hands.
I always ask my guests at the end to just say who they are, say their name, and then tell everyone out there listening to go out there and do some magic.
My name is Catherine Curtin. I'm an actor, and you can find me on Instagram at Kate Curtin, CATECURTIN. I might not be able to follow you back because, I don't know what that's about, but that may be a thing. But it seems like, I look for you guys and I'm getting you, it's coming down on my feed. So, keep knocking on my feed. I'm very grateful. And, you know, making the magic, if we don't make the magic will not be there. I feel in some way the idea of the drone is to drone out the magic. So let's not have the magic droned out. Let's ignite the magic and create the flame. And I'm so grateful for everybody out there that I'm in awe that I watch your magic, and I'm so grateful. And thank you for making magic. Thank you.
You heard her. Till next time, everybody.